Okay, this is a brief lecture related to email, in particular the POP protocol. POP stands for Post Office Protocol, and its purpose is to allow transfer of email from the client to the server, or the reading of email from the server, pulling it down to the client. This was first described in RFC 918, which was created in 1984. A few months later, POP2 came out. It's described in RFC 937, and that was published in February of 1985. And then the current version, POP3, was described in RFC 1081, and that was created in November of 1988. And like I said, that's the current version of POP that is available. POP is considered these days an old protocol. It's still used, but its use is greatly declining. When you first connect to a POP server, you need to go through an authentication process. And what we're going to discuss here is figure 78-2 from your textbook. So you have a client. It uses TCP to form the initial connection to the POP server. And if the POP server is up and running, it will respond back with +OK ready. And then the client will send a user ID, send the user command. If the POP server is happy with the user ID, it's going to send a +OK reply. Then the client is going to send the password. And if the password is correct, then the POP3 server is going to send in a +OK, and you're basically connected and logged in to the POP server. As far as commands that you can send at this point, there are several I want to discuss. It's not quite an all-inclusive list, but these are the major ones. The first is you can request a status of your mailbox, and it will tell you the number of messages that are in your mailbox, what's the total size of your mailbox, and depending on the implementation, may give you other information as well. The next command is the list command. You can optionally specify a message number, but what it's going to do is it's going to list out the messages and have things like what number is the message in your mailbox, maybe the date it was received, the size, that type of information. When you're ready to read your email, you would use a retrieve command, RETR, and you would give a message number, and that specified email with that message number would be pulled down from the server to your client and displayed to you. So this is you reading your email. If you have an email that you want to get rid of, regardless of whether you've read it or not, you can use the delete command, DELE. You specify a message number, and it will delete the specified email message. There is a no operation command, no op. It doesn't have any parameters, and it doesn't really do anything other than if it is received by the server will just respond back +OK. So that shows that the server is up, you're connected to it. Could be used as a keep alive if your email server times out. Sending a no op command would cause you to have some interaction with the server and maybe prevent it from timing out. There is a top command, and basically what that does is you give a message number and a number of lines, like message number 10 I want to see 5 lines of, and what it'll do is it'll show you that many lines from the specified email message. So if you just want to kind of see what it is or see the headers, you can use the top command. There is a reset command, RSET, and it does not take any parameters, but this is kind of your the same as quitting out of mail without saving anything and then going back into mail. So it resets your session, and if you've marked anything for deletion, it will unmark those so that they're no longer marked for deletion. As far as the process of sending email and talking to the POP server, this is figure 78-3 from your textbook. So this is kind of an example. You might log in, you might do the stat command to see how many messages you have. You might do a list to see what the actual messages are. You might then retrieve your first email, so retrieve one. You will see that message. Assuming you no longer want it, you can delete that message, and then you can go back and say, okay, I'd like to retrieve message 2. You read message 2, and then you can say delete number 2. So this is kind of a example of how you might go through and interact, or more accurately, how your client would interact with the POP mail server. One thing about email storage with POP, we have two options. The first option I want to discuss is when you keep your messages on the server. So the big advantage to this is if I read my email, let's say on my home computer, and then I quit, and then I go into the office and I read my email there, all my messages are still available to me because they're being stored on the server. Now, the big disadvantage is that these email messages take up space. If you have a quota, you might hit that quota and then maybe go through and have to delete some emails that you didn't really want to delete, or download them and store them. During the day when POP3 was popular, hard drive space was not like it was today. I remember on one of the mail servers that I used to run in the, I guess, late 80s, early 90s, I remember when I got a ton of disk space for my email server because I was able to now buy a 4 gigabyte hard drive. And so, space was kind of at a premium. There were thousands of users using that. So they had to have mail quotas, and therefore that might take up space. And if you exceed your quota, you're not able to send and receive email typically. So the other option is to download messages to your computer. So if POP was configured to do that, when you logged in, all the email messages were moved from the server down to your local machine and then deleted off the server. Of course, the advantage to doing this is it frees up space every time you read your email on the server because you pulled it down to your local computer. But there is a huge, huge disadvantage to this. The messages are no longer available on the server. So if you do something, let's say you go home and you read your email and it's configured to download the messages, and you see a message from your boss that says, hey, I have a 10 a.m. meeting tomorrow. I need you to generate a report for that. Here's all the information I need in the report. And you kind of think to yourself, well, his meeting's not till 10. I get to work at 8. I have a couple hours to do that. No big deal. I'll just do it tomorrow. So you go to the office the next morning and you think, hey, I need to do that report for my boss. Let me go read the email to see exactly what he wanted in that report. And you go to check your mail and it's no longer there because it was downloaded to your home computer. So that's the big drawback to downloading messages. Now, if you only read email from a single computer all the time, then you would be fine with that. So that's a very quick discussion of some things you need to be aware of related to the POP or Post Office Protocol.